Imagine you being gently swayed to sleep on your luxurious catamaran in the Caribbean Sea, when suddenly you're being jolted awake by the sound of the anchor chain moving and an alarm blaring, and when you turn over to alert your girlfriend, she's gone. And you can't find her anywhere on the boat. Well, at least that's the story you tell the Coast Guard. Let's talk about it. Sarm Heslop was born on December the 19th in 1979 in Southampton, England. She always had what we might call the travel bug. This even showed in her choice of work. She became a flight attendant. But even that wasn't enough. In 2019, she left Southampton to sail across the Atlantic with friends. Her and her two friends stayed for a while in and around the Caribbean. And while she was there, she met a man on Tinder, Ryan Bain, an American. He was living in the Caribbean and he made his money by renting his catamaran to tourists. The two dated for a while in 2020, and the relationship became serious within 3 months. So serious that Sarm decided to stay and work as a cook on his ship. This, by the way, had been her dream all along. She wanted to become a chef or a cook. That's why she quit flight attending. And suddenly, it seemed like all of her dreams were coming true at once. But then, those dreams were shattered. On the 7th of March in 2021, Ryan and Sarm were visiting the small island of St. John. The two had dinner together in a restaurant. The two had to be back on the boat and off the island by 10 p.m. That was the law back then because of the COVID regulations. So they took a small dinghy back to the catamaran that was laying on anchor in Cruz Bay. That was the last time anyone other than Ryan saw Sarm alive. Now, here's where the story gets murky. At approximately 11:46 the next morning, Ryan got in contact with the Coast Guard. And he told them a very strange story. He claimed that he thought his girlfriend must have gone overboard last night. He got woken up at around 2 a.m. in the morning by the alarm of the anchor. The system only alerts if the boat becomes adrift. It was at this point he claims that he noticed that his girlfriend was gone, but all of her things were still on the ship, including her phone, her passport, and her wallet. Now you're probably thinking the same thing the Coast Guard did. If he thought his girlfriend went overboard last night, why did he wait till nearly noon to alert the authorities? Well, Ryan had an answer. He claimed that he had contacted the local police at around 2:30, and the police actually confirmed this. But now we get two very different stories. The police officers told the Coast Guard that they told Ryan to immediately contact the Coast Guard themselves, because they were the ones responsible for searching for people lost on the water. But Ryan said that he understood that they, so the police, were gonna contact the Coast Guard. And that's why he didn't do anything for the rest of the night. The Coast Guard later gave the following statement. The responsibility to alert them of a missing person or a person that went overboard is always with the captain of the vessel. When someone goes overboard, every second counts. To wait 9 hours significantly lowers the chances of finding someone in the water. The captain in this case is of course Ryan. Nonetheless, the Coast Guard started searching for Sarm at noon. By this point, if the timeline is correct, she must have been in the water for more than 11 hours. I don't think I have to tell you what that means. Ryan really never talked to anyone after this. The only person that did speak for him was his lawyer, David Catty. David, by the way, is the same guy that defended Ghislaine Maxwell. Yes, that Ghislaine Maxwell. And he gave the press the following information. My client, so Ryan Bain, thinks that Sarm must have hit her head and then unconsciously fallen into the water. That would explain why she didn't shout for help or just swam to the coast. Because according to Sarm's family, she was a very good swimmer. The coast was lit up and close enough to the ship that a good swimmer would make it there. And the ocean was very calm that night. Ryan, meanwhile, completely refused for the police to search his catamaran. He could do this thanks to the Fourth Amendment of the US Constitution, which forbids searches on private property unless they have a warrant, and the police never got one. The only ones that saw the ship were the Coast Guard, but even they only saw the outside. Ryan has been known to be violent towards women before. In fact, he punched his ex-wife so hard that she not only lost 2 teeth, but was also unconscious for a while. He only went to prison for 60 days for that. Of course, it doesn't automatically mean he did something to Sarm, but if we look at the whole picture, it makes him look very guilty. A few days after Sarm disappeared, a man contacted the police. He told them that he took his dog for a walk that night, around Cruz Bay, and at around 2 a.m., he had heard a woman scream from the direction of the water, so right around the time when Sarm allegedly disappeared. Ryan meanwhile disappeared himself from the Virgin Islands, only 5 weeks after Sarm's disappearance, and he never returned. He even sold the catamaran in 2021. Now, here's a bit of something curious. Before he sold it, he completely removed the fridge and he changed parts of the living quarters. Sarm's family actually called for a forensic investigation of the boat after it was sold. I couldn't find any information on if that happened, but even if it did, I'm gonna guess there's a reason Ryan ripped parts of the ship out. In fact, it seems that her family and friends are really the only ones looking into what happened to the women. And that includes the police. They didn't even search for witnesses. The witness that said he heard a woman scream came to the police by himself because he saw what had happened on the news. But that wasn't the only weird thing about the police work. When Sarm's family came to the island, the police showed them CCTV footage that showed Sarm and Ryan the night she disappeared. But the police refused to show them the entire tape. They claimed it was important not to show it all in case it ever came to a trial, and they needed it as evidence. That's not the strangest thing about this footage though. In the footage the family got to see, Sarm was not wearing what the last witness that saw her said she was wearing. It was stated that she was in a black dress with flowers on it, but in the CCTV footage, she's wearing a top with either shorts or a skirt. The black dress, meanwhile, is gone. It was never returned with her possessions. Now, in 2025, a reporter of the BBC went to the Caribbean for a documentary, and suddenly the police were more than helpful. They admitted to this journalist that there's nothing they could do, and they even gave him the entire CCTV footage. What's in the video really isn't that interesting. It just shows Ryan and Sarm getting into the dinghy. But there was something else. The timestamp in the video. Ryan had made multiple different claims about that night, but what never changed was the time he claimed they were back on the boat. He had told the Coast Guard that they had reached the boat by 10 p.m, but the video showed them getting into the dinghy at 8:45. So at the latest, they were back on the catamaran by 9 p.m. So what happened in that 1 hour? His lawyer claims this mistake is just due to the stress of his partner going missing. But there's one last damning piece of evidence against Ryan. There were 2 other boats in the bay that night, and it's custom to immediately alert every boat around you that there might be a person overboard. So at the very least, they can turn on their lights and thus making it easier to find the person in the dark ocean. This is just a done thing, no matter the time of night. In fact, the owners of the other boat later stated that they were very confused that Ryan hadn't woken them up, and they only found out about the missing woman when people on the island told them. Ryan was never really questioned by the police, even though he's the only person of interest. Sarm is still missing, and her family don't even have a body to bury. So what do you think? Did Ryan commit the perfect crime, or was it all a tragic accident? But would you really wait 9 hours to get help, even if he thought the police would contact the Coast Guard? Didn't he notice within the hour that they weren't coming? Let me know your thoughts. And if you want a more in-depth look at this case, I highly recommend watching BBC's Missing in Paradise.